What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the other side of the Firewall podcast, where we talk about the latest and greatest of cybersecurity news, as well as we highlight those movers and shakers and glass ceiling breakers, those people of color who made it to the other side of the proverbial firewall. My name is Ryan Williams, and as always, I'm joined by Shannon Tynes.
What's up? What's up?
What's going on? So, welcome to Wednesday's discussion. So, if you have not done so already, please go back and tune in for Monday and Tuesday topics, and then in the future, you have Thursday will be a throwback, and then Friday will be everything else, so movies, books, games, all that good stuff. So, definitely continue to tune in for all of that. Happy holidays and all the above. And without further ado, I give it to Shannon.
All right, everybody. So this next article comes from theguardian.com. This one's going to be crazy. So it's a discussion. It's written by Johanna Boyan. I hope I said your name right, Johanna. And it's titled Rite Aid facial recognition misidentified Black, Latino, and Asian people as likely shoplifters. All right. So Dr. Gabriel, one of the first articles, one of the first ones we did, right? If not the first, I want to say, right? Some three some odd years ago, was talking about this, right? So Dr. Gabriel was someone who worked for Google and was talking about how AI was not as proficient as it needed to be, right? So it was one of those things where it would misidentify, or it could not correctly identify, which is the same as misidentify, I guess, people of color and especially Black women, right? So it was one of the things that it was talking about AI was doing, and we kind of had the same thing here. So apparently, what was going on, right, was Rite Aid was using facial recognition to identify people that they thought it could kind of I don't want to say it's like Minority reported them, but it thought they would be subject to committing crimes, right? And what it was doing, it deemed them as likely to, do shoplifting and things of that nature or other criminal behavior, right? So what was happening is they put this out on in certain cities, right? And it was actually a few large cities that this was happening in, that Rite Aid kind of did a pilot program for this, and it was used in let's see, New York, L.A., San Fran, Philly, Baltimore, Detroit, Atlantic City, Seattle, Portland in Oregon, Wilmington in Delaware, Sacramento. All these places all went through this, right? And they did this. And what happened was there was two private unnamed vendors that Rite Aid was using that created databases of persons of interest, right? And they actually quote it in the article. I'm not doing this on my own, but persons of interest. And it had images of people and other personally identifying information, right? And so the reason this was a problem was because the AI was not that proficient at identifying those minorities, and they often got that information from low quality images from their CCTVs. It was not making for a very good match, and they were out there in these cities. They were approaching people when they came into the stores, and it was like mistaken identity. It was people that wasn't even the same person that they thought it was. So I was like, they come to somebody and like in front of other people, right? So if I go in there with my friends and they're like, hey, James, they say my name is, right? You need to go ahead and get out of here because we know you're going to be stealing. Instead of they're like, yo, I'm not James, you know what I'm saying? But you're doing this in front of my friends and whatnot, right? Like it's an embarrassing thing, right? It's a matter of embarrassment, or, just one of those things where, your friends are like, what is this dude doing in his off time, to where he's on the hot list over here at Rite Aid. You know what I mean? Like who's stealing from Rite Aid like that? You know what I mean? I mean, I guess I know it's happening, right? I know people, they have their needs or whatever, but, this is just one of those things where it's already known, and they did this for years, right? And this was a while back, but they did it. Let me see if I can find the years here. I want to say it was like a 6-year gap. I want to say it was like 2014 to 2020 or something like that. I can't remember the years off the top of my head that they did this, but this has already been a known thing, to where facial recognition when it comes to minorities was just not that proficient. All right. Oh, actually, it's October 2012 to July 2020. So it was about 8 years, almost 8 years, is how they did this. Right. So this is just not the way to go about doing things. And again, like I've said this previously, I'm the person that's all about getting ahead of crime, right? The whole Patriot Act thing and whatnot, right? But the Patriot Act was one of those things where it should have been enacted based off good intel, right? That's not what they had here. Like they had a terrible system that didn't work that well, and they went out there and they used it, and they didn't use it the correct way. You know what I mean? So knowing and again, know what we know now, right? I brought up Dr. Gabriel. That was back in 2020. She had her situation with Google, right? Like from that point forward, it should have been to where people were like, "Hey, we know AI is not that good at identifying people of color, right? Women as well, right? Because that's the whole thing with Dr. Gabriel was it was especially black women. Um, we need to find a better way to do this or implement a different way of doing this, right? Like everybody wants to be ahead with AI. I get it, right? It makes it easier to have just like a facial recognition. And I don't know how they did it, right? Like I didn't see it explained in the article how they did it with the facial recognition. If it was a matter of when people came in the door, maybe it was sending something somewhere to the back to the theft protection people or whatever. But we got to find a way to do it right, right? You can't go out there and implement these things knowing that you have these problems, right? Because I know even before 2020 with Dr. Gabriel, this was something that had been talked about before, right? Like I'd seen articles before where back in 2018, 2017, this was an issue, right? But how are we gonna get better at this, right? Like I know everybody wants the AI thing. I know everybody wants to, especially when it comes to retailers, right? They want to avoid the whole loss of theft or loss by theft and things of that nature, right? Or someone doing any type of other criminal activity in your facilities. But it doesn't make sense to me that we're still at this point where we use flawed technology to try to get by on some of these things. And I don't know. I think we should just be doing better. You know what I mean? But Ryan, what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, that seems to be the theme this week is do better. So definitely continue to tune in throughout the week. Please like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Um, so at the I guess the beginning and end of the day, AI is biased towards whatever you give it, right? So like we named all these major cities, and in all these major cities, they're probably feeding it disproportionate information, right? Like where's the data coming from Wyoming or what I mean, from Minot, from Mobile, Alabama, for where you have a disproportionate amount of people of a different race who are stealing, right? It's not a matter of um it's not a matter of AI being racist. It's a matter of the people putting the information are doing it at a disproportionate amount. They are biased themselves, and the data they give the machine is going to be biased. So garbage in, garbage out. And then, like you said, the technology is just not there yet. So they're using really cheap cameras and things of that nature that are unable to basically identify one person of color versus another person of color. So if you're going to use the tech, then you have to invest the resources to make it happen. Because we already know from just in movie, cinema, TV show, things of that nature, even the type of cameras being used are biased or flawed in themselves. So like you have a show like Insecure, where their production budget had to go towards buying better cameras because they had lots of people of color, and the way that cameras were originally set up and designed were to pick up uh, the better image being of people who are not people of color, so white people basically, right? That's the way it was designed because that's who's on TV at the time, right? We need to make the best image possible. You have a biased group of people building this technology and then filming people who look like them. So you're getting the best angle and light on those people. And then when you have a show primary of people of color, then you start to see that, hey, like, why is it not picking up our pigment, right? Why is the cameras, why does the image not look as good? Well, it's because the technology was flawed from the beginning, right? It's been biased. Same thing with AI. You have a bunch of people who probably look very similar in a room, feeding it images of people who don't look like them, and again, garbage in, garbage out. So like, of course these people are shoplifters, right? As opposed to taking a more diverse pool and feeding that to the machine, saying, okay, we know that maybe in these more rural parts, there's the heartland, people are going to look a little bit different at still. Let's feed an image of that as well. And then hopefully find some kind of happy medium. Because I'm sure there's somebody out there listening saying, well, most people who shoplift are people of color then, right? Or they under that impression. Um, and maybe in certain segments or certain areas that may be the case, but that may be the case only because those type of people shop at, the Rite Aid in this urban area, right? You're not going to see a lot of people, white people there versus a different area. So again, there's a bias being set, unfortunately.
Well, it's also, and there's been several studies out there to show this, that the people of color are prosecuted more. It's not necessarily that they're doing it more; they're
Right.
prosecuted more, right? Like they're for the same crimes, right?
Right.
So,
Everybody's out there stealing,
right,
but only one person's getting locked up for it.
right.
Uh, So yeah, and it's very true. So again, and we've seen this in other studies and tests as well. Like when it's the baby doll test. I forget what it was called, but it was like they gave kids baby dolls and told them to pick which ones were the good ones or the bad ones, and then disproportionately it was always the ones with darker complexion were the bad ones. Or there was another study. My undergrad's in psychology, so this stuff always fascinates me, right? Like the Stanford study. But in one it was mugshots. Like they gave mugshots to people and ask them to ask like which ones are criminals, which ones are bad people, etc. And then disproportionately it's always the people who have some sort of melanin in their skin. It's because that's what they're being fed through media, through news, through other things that bias them to believe that these people are inherently criminals. And we're just doing the same thing to AI. So again, Dr. Gabriel was onto something. Like we need to be better in order to make sure that we don't teach the machines to be just as bad as we are. So hopefully, Rite Aid gets their stuff together. I'm sure that this was not the only company that was doing this. And we're starting to see, I saw an article the other day where they're starting to pull out of the self-checkouts because even though it was saving them a lot of money, it's allowing people to steal more, at least is what they believe. So they want to bring back more registers, people manning them. Uh, Good. You should have never done that at the beginning. Like, I don't work for Walmart. Like, why am I checking myself out? Yeah, it's a little bit quicker, but that's only because like you have 20 lines and only two of them have people manning them, right? You're trying to save money and now you believe you're losing money through theft. Again, there's a bias there. So again, do better. That's what we're asking for. And there's a ton of cameras there too when you go to self-checkout, right? Like you see like there's a monitor facing you and there's one above and it's like flashing lights. Like it really feels like 1984. That's where we're headed. Big Brother is watching. And if we're going to go that route, right? Where AI is supposed to be this magical creature that's going to solve all our problems, then we have to teach it to be better than us. Like if we're going to give it if we're going to give the reins to it, then we have to make sure it's better than a human being. It doesn't seem to be the case right now. So I digress. Happy holidays, people. But continue to tune into the show. Monday, Tuesday again were our topics. Today was discussion. Thursday will be a throwback, and then Friday, everything else, movies, books, games, all that good stuff, where we get to unwind for the holidays. So tune in for all that. Hit up all the websites to go by our name. You can hit me up personally. I'm at RyRy Security Guy. That's RYRY Security Guy. You can find me on LinkedIn, Clubhouse, Twitter, and Threads. Stay safe, stay secure. Happy holidays.